Um, we should be back,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, we're back. I don't know what the
Okay,
fuck that
cool.
was. Sorry about that. Keep it going.
Technology. Regardless, so we were all in relatively close ages, right? And I remember that day exactly. I was in my class. My teacher came in to turn off the television, and one of my the third grade teachers was right next door, stopped her. We're like, what's going on? Right? Like, what's going on? We're watching the movie, the TV, the television, and we're seeing this plane hitting the first tower. We're like, what is going on? We have no idea. We have no conception of what is physically happening in the real world. And then the second tower hits. And I remember she came running, I mean, rushing and turning the TV off. Next thing I know, I remember students getting absolutely pulled from my class, one after another. But both of my parents worked, so they weren't able to get me. I was one of three kids that was left in that school to be taken by the buses home because my parents physically could not come and get me on that day. What were you guys doing, or do you remember it?
Yeah, no, my parents said fuck that. They left me in class. Like, I just took the bus home. It was a normal day for me. Like, the box. So they rolled the TV box in, and the first tower had already been hit. Teachers were coming around to the classroom. I had what was her name, Miss Hildebrand, and we were in the middle of English studies, and we were just reading a book. Next thing you know, teacher Miss Kenichli, which at that time was the um, principal, she comes in and she's like, "Hey, you might want to turn on the TV for the class. Um, Something's happening. That's crazy." And it being a first grader, I remember, thinking back to it, it wasn't that big of a deal to us. Like we didn't know what we were watching. It just it the nowadays though, I mean, I would imagine it's different because people have realized the world's kind of fucked up. Like, for example, the past week, all you've heard about probably is a balloon, you know?
Which we'll get into that later.
Right.
But we're focusing on 9/11 that day. And it's hard for a lot of people to wrap their head around that specific day because it's very hard for most of us. For most of us in our lifetime, it was the first time we united as a country. We came together and felt sympathy for our country, right?
Yeah.
And other countries felt that for us. And I'm trying to go back to that day because, like, I remember without a doubt what happened then. And most people after my age, including Logan, um, most of them don't remember. So that's what I guess what I'm asking is, Logan, do you remember that day?
I was in preschool and I got picked up by my parents, but I don't think I watched the tower fall or anything like that.
Right. So like I guess was what they're saying is 2013, the graduating class of 2013 was the last generation to physically remember everything that happened on that horrendous day. We're gonna get into more, obviously, the slurspiracy and conspiracy of it, but right now we're just focusing on the details of when we were kids. And I remember all the kids getting taken out of that class, and it's just me and three others, and we had no idea what was going on. Finally, my parents were like, "Hey," they called me because I had to go to the principal's office to receive this phone call. And I was like, "Hey, what's going on?" And they're like, "Hey, we can't come get you. We can't leave work. We will see you at home. Please stay safe." And I was like, "This is terrifying." As a, 7-year-old or 6-year-old or whatever, going through this time frame, you thought the end of the world was coming. You saw two major skyscrapers fall to the ground.
Well, I feel
And
like a part of that too, though, for us is like if you're in Washington D.C., I'm sure you're scared. If you're in, do you know what I mean? Like, but being in Ohio, being in North Carolina, like what in general, I feel like there aren't that many targets to be super concerned about them hitting.
I was also in the middle of the country. I mean, I guess closer to a major city. Like, you guys are closer to Columbus than I was. I guess it's a different story. Like, I remember my dad actually works at that time worked in Columbus. So it was one of those things that I could tell it was unnerving for him. Like he wasn't sure if he was going to get drafted because he did have previous experience. He did serve prior.
Prior service.
Yeah,
I'm
that.
the drunk one. What the fuck, guy?
Paul, you sound like a basic white chick that is explaining their life story at the bar right now.
Well, you know what? I'm doing my best, so don't judge me.
Stop
Judging.
it.
Dude, you know what's crazy though? You know what else is kind of crazy? I'm sorry, I'm kind of flipping the script right now, but I was thinking
Please.
about. I've been playing a lot of Escape from Tarkov,
Yeah.
which is like
Of course you have.
it's a realistic first person shooter, and they have these things in the game called injectors, and like can inject yourself with like drugs to improve your endurance or your stress resistance or like your skills and things like that. I was curious. I was talking to Connery, and I was like, I wonder if they actually have stuff like that in the military. And then I stumbled across auto injectors. Do you
Yeah.
guys know what those are?
In 2019, they started
Um,
testing auto injectors.
so like, is that like super soldier serum from like when we see Captain America or some shit?
It's
No, so
CBD.
there's like syringes pre-filled with medications that are they have like an injector into either intramuscular or intravenous, and like it's constantly hooked up. And so then when like you experience a seizure, it automatically injects the drug into your system.
It
Or when
looks
you are exposed to poison, it automatically injects the antidote into your system.
it looks like
Really?
it's designed for use in chemical, biological, radiological, nuclear, CBRN environments. So it's a CBD auto injector, and I don't know if that's a cannabinoid injector. I think it's just like acronym for the device itself. Um,
So like,
Here's
I
biological
some.
guess
defense auto
what is the
injector device.
relevance to this day? I guess.
Here, it's not necessarily relevant to 9/11.
Do you think
I
Ahmed
was
had it on him while he was in the flight to stay awake?
Shut
like,
the
if you
fuck up, Connery.
like, so for example, like epinephrine for anaphylaxis or like diazepam for seizures or like there's stuff for migraine or opioid overdose, like you can put naloxone in an auto injector. You can
Correct.
do um there's one for like antibacterial infections. Like there's all sorts of stuff.
Right.
Diabetes, obviously you have like your insulin auto injectors.
Okay.
For our Twitch listeners right now, sorry, having a few technical difficulties. We do have quite a few chats right now. One of which is a guy over in the UK. He's stating he watched it live. So they watched it live. It was on every TV station, which
Really?
is pretty normal. I mean, when a country has a major attack or major event happening, it's typical that it's on. Like
So
France had a
I
few for riots and things like that.
I remember it was a couple of months after that incident or the tragedy that we had on that day. And Russia actually sent us a monument. God, I can't talk. A monument for that day. It was a giant teardrop with like broken buildings or whatever, and they resurrected that at the site or ground zero. So there was a lot of countries that felt sympathy and gave aid to us when we needed it. Do you guys remember when we got that monument, like the giant teardrop coming down from the Twin Towers that they gave us from Russia?
No.
I don't.
No, right. So there's a many a times throughout our U.S. history where we have received gifts in times of tragedy or in times of peace from foreign diplomats. So like
Are you trying to say
France,
we should help
Russia.
Russia? Is that
No, I'm
where
not
you're going
saying
with this?
no, 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 no. Don't skew my words,
Don't
motherfucker.
splooge on my words.
Don't splooge on my words.
I
I'm just
mean,
saying I remember that day. Like a lot of people after my age or Connery's age do not physically remember that day and can't. It's like us looking back at the Challenger explosion. None of us were alive. We don't know or feel that
I remember
the
that day.
trauma. You don't remember that. You don't remember
Yeah, I do.
1989. You don't
You
remember.
can't
You
tell
weren't
me
even
what I do or
born,
don't
bitch.
remember.
Statue
But
of Liberty was a
regardless,
gift. Yeah.
it was.
I remember
That's
when they
what I'm
put
getting
that
at.
up.
Is we
Yeah.
have a lot of countries
It
that
wasn't as
gave
green
us
back then.
sympathy. Well, copper's a bitch, isn't it?
Paul,
So I guess
I feel bad because like I am not at your level. I'm trying to get there,
you're
buddy.
not. None of you are close to my level. I've been
No.
drinking since 10 a.m.
Yeah, we know.
About
I
7.
get that, and I'm sorry to
Some
my
11.
listeners. I really thought I would have been done by 4, sobered up by 6. Shit don't
Nope.
happen that way.
That is the cool thing. We just got a comment. If you die in space, you get a school named after you. Talking
I
about the
hate you.
Challenger explosion.
Who posted that?
Don't worry about it.
Regardless, that's something that we'll physically never understand.
What are you talking about?
No, we don't understand that.
When it
we
comes
weren't.
to when it comes to
We were
gifts,
not alive. We weren't even born when that
Oh.
happened, Connery.
look,
We
the
were
US,
born during
Look, the Russia may have given us a teardrop tattoo or whatever the fuck you're talking
not
about.
tattoo, a memorial
Yeah.
tattoo. Yeah, tattoo.
So, anyways, they may have given us that, right? But it's pretty much fucking worthless. It doesn't help with anything. They could have given us what we gave Ukraine, Abraham tanks. At least we're giving them gifts that are nice. Get the job done.
Give us something useful.
Yeah.
Jesus.
I don't know anything about this teardrop that he's talking. And Paul just disappeared. So, do you want to stay on 9/11, Logan?
Yeah, totally remember 9/11.
I was gonna say because it's
I just have so many memories of 9/11. We should keep talking about it some more.
yeah,
I
never
have a lot to
forget.
say. No, I mean obviously it's a terrible thing, and he's absolutely right. You know what I was thinking about too? Like how quickly 9/11 was put into textbooks.
It was
Think about
put into
that.
that
Like
pretty
how
quickly.
quickly that event was being taught in U.S. history.
They cemented
in
it in
schools.
stone
So-
immediately.
I had to pee, so that's why I said T-1, as I did in the chat. Our live viewers will get it. The teardrop was a significance of the sorrow that was felt around the world, is what Russia said. It had all of the deaths engraved upon the monument, put at ground zero.
Oh, you're talking
You
about the
can
tear
go
of
see
grief.
it today. Yeah, you can go see it to this day, and I suggest everyone should. It really, even if you were
Can't
not
just
there
cry when I
or
watch you fall off a chair.
you can't. I mean, I cried a little bit inside when I fell off the chair. But and I'm kind of disappointed we don't have the new simulation up. I just realized that there's 3 of us. It didn't cut out. It definitely got all of it.
You
But
recorded.
regardless, yeah, it's recorded. It's on YouTube. Whatever.
Did we clip it?
So that
Someone
day
clip that.
will forever be ingrained on that statue and that memorial and that monument.
So, anyways,
But what we were talking, now hold on.
No,
What
I'm
we were
bringing
talking
up the statue. It's a 100-foot bronze-clad tower split with jagged opening in the middle. Now, former U.S. President Bill Clinton did attend it, and he said, in quote, "The teardrop reminds me of the dribble from Lewinsky's face."
Hey, you know that's not what he
Hey yo.
Too soon. Too soon. But regardless, that day is only pretty much felt from our generation on, is what I'm getting at. 2013 present,
Let me ask you, Paul.
they remember it. Anyone after that
Let me ask
really
you.
does not remember the exact sequences that happened that day.
I should probably ask this when you're sober because I know your
Probably.
response. Do you actually
Probably.
have any emotional connection to 9/11 happening?
I do. So it's pretty shitty. Like I said, that day was crazy. It was a whirlwind. It was probably one of the first days, other than a blizzard before that, that I got actually taken out of school, and majority of my class was gone. And I mean, when I finally was able to get taken out, it was like right when the buses were there.
So you're just
Right.
still mad that you didn't get the day off school.
No, I wanted the whole fucking day, damn it. But I guess I was getting to the point we were the last generation to remember it. So after that, it has been quite some time since then. Obviously, all of us have heard the conspiracy theories and the theories in general about that day. We talked about the Pentagon last week. We have talked about the buildings previous on the insurance claims that were filed on that day. We had many of our listeners that absolutely blew us the fuck up over this day and wanting us to talk on the conspiracy side. So I guess we kind of have to dig in a little bit. We have covered the fact that not only a mass insurance policy, which we have a coworker that works in the insurance field, understands how there's paperwork and logistics that you have to do to file that before this. So there was a mass investment that was put into these buildings, right? And it just happens the fact that they put these insurance not even 2 months before the buildings go down. Are you like, does no one think that that's a
How
little
long
bit
does it
sketchy?
Okay, so there's people called actuaries who go to school for like 8 to 10 years, and their job is basically risk assessment. And so they go to school basically as long as a doctor, and they learn all of these calculations. What those calculations help them to do is to determine risk. What is the liability, and what dollar amount is equal
Correct.
to the liability? And
Correct.
so, like, that's what's given. What the actuaries find is what's given to the underwriters, who assess the risk based on the guidelines they have, who approve or deny an insurance policy.
Okay.
So, like, it sometimes it takes a long time with a liability as large as that to determine what the actual risk is and approve coverage. So, like, it's not as simple as just like, we built the building, let's put an insurance policy on it. Sometimes that time to assess the risk takes a while.
So rather than talking, hypotheticals, just 2 months before 9/11, the World Trade Center's lease was sold to Larry Silverstein. Silverstein took out an insurance plan that was fortuitously covered terrorism. After 9/11, Silverstein took the insurance company to court, claiming he should be paid double because there was two attacks. He won and was awarded 4,550,000,000 dollars.
What was his investment? Like, what was the
That's
principal?
what I want to know. What was the total investment when he built those buildings? And then after that horrific day happened, how much did he get?
So it looks like he led a consortium of investors and lenders, which included GMAC Commercial Mortgage, a General Motors subsidiary, which is kind of weird. That's around the same, what was that, a few years before the bailout. Westfield America Incorporated, a shopping center developer, a real estate investor, Lloyd Goldman. All these entities had a voice in deciding how much insurance coverage the properties would have, and each had some claim on whatever insurance monies were paid out. Bear in mind, too, that when we speak of terrorism insurance coverage, what we're actually speaking of is coverage that doesn't have a terrorism exclusion. Such
Yeah, it's
exclusions are
property
uncommon now.
damage coverage. It's
Yeah.
property damage coverage without a terrorism exclusion, because terrorism is typically considered a catastrophe, which is not covered under most insurance policies.
Wait a second. For
What do you
example, the
mean? What do you
World
mean?
Trade Center was fully covered when it was bombed by terrorists in 1993. And
Correct. That was the original bombing in the bottom floors with the van. So there was more than
oh
one
yeah,
bombing attempts on the World Trade Center.
that was
And that's what people don't
510.
realize.
Yeah, that was 510
Exactly.
million dollars in damages.
And a
Um,
lot of conspiracy theorists or theorists in general think that there was infrastructure damage done during that original bombing on the bottom floors, which made it eventually crumble during those 9/11 attacks. I do not agree with that personally. We have buildings that were engineered and constructed to take impact of larger than a 747, and that's what these original engineers said for this 9/11 build, or the structure
Hypothetically,
schematics
though,
of it.
they didn't test it.
No, 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 no. They never tested it. But think about it this way, Logan: the
If I
Eiffel
tell you
Tower
it'll
and
withstand an
the
RPG and I can't shoot an RPG at it, what does that prove?
I get you, I get it. But like, if you physically take in the physics and engineering of a 747 on impact on the Empire State Building, right? The Empire State Building was built in the early, if I remember correctly, 1900s, late 1800s, and you could take a large aircraft at that point taking impact on this building and it survive. Why is it that we have modern day engineering with two towers that can take an impact of a larger than a 747, yet they crumbled on that day?
Look, all of this is crazy. Wow, towers are down. Look, they've been down. There's obviously conspiracy behind it. But my question is, so Larry Silverstein reportedly paid $3.2 billion for a bid to lease purchase of the World Trade Centers, right? So that's the two buildings. Now,
Correct.
he ended up getting 4.55 billion.
No. He got 7.9 when
No,
it was all settled.
no,
I'm reading it right now.
he requested
7.9 in insurance claims from them.
he originally sought $7.1 billion, and this is off of Snoops, right? So when it comes to reliability, Snoops is
Right. Snoop
decent.
says it bad. Right.
So, however, the cost for rebuilding the World Trade Center which was in 2004, was estimated at $9 billion. Now, I
Correct.
don't know about you, Logan, but when an insurance company gives you money to restore your property to pre-loss conditions, don't you have to, by law? What did he do with this money?
So insurance, the goal of insurance is to restore you in the case of a total loss. So the building was completely destroyed. That's a total loss. The goal of the insurance company should be to restore you for your initial investment in that building or the market value of that structure after it's built.
So he got
So
market
here
value for it. Well, under market value for it, but
here's the thing though.
so he made
How
money off
many
of it.
Let me ask you guys this. How many buildings on 9/11 fell? Let me ask you that.
3.
How many buildings
Whoa,
fell on
a
9/11?
lot
No.
more than
Hold
3.
on. Connery, how many fell?
28.
Logan, how many fell?
3.
7.
Yeah, I was gonna say
7 buildings fell.
the buildings
And
around
it
the
took,
towers.
listen to me this right now. It took 7 buildings around the proximity of building 1 and 2 for them to acquire the full claim from their insurance policy. And there is multiple, not 1 or 2, not 3 or 4, like 30 to 150 people saying that building 7 was blown up on purpose so that they could receive full insurance claim. They could receive the full allotment from their insurance claim on those buildings because they purposely blew up buildings. Now, if you guys look right now on where the buildings schematics are, right, of where buildings 1 through 7 are, building 7 is at the north point of the impact center. So you have plane 1 coming in from the northwest, and then you have the other plane coming in at I think, if I remember correctly, it was like southwest. It was an opposite direction. Not one of those areas covered building 7. And they said that building 7 had to be torn down due to fire damage from building 1
That makes sense.
of debris, right? You think that until you see building 1, right, was hit at an opposite direction. How would it catch fire even after it's completely collapsed and that building 7 is
So
completely standing, and it fell 2.5 hours later? Tell me. I know a lot of people,
so
not just me, a lot of people.
Okay.
the collapse of the World Trade Center tower, we'll call it WTC-1, was at 10:28 a.m. Now,
Correct.
for fires though, fires lasted up until the collapse of Building 7 at 5:52 p.m. So that's
Also
7
correct.
that's 7 hours.
Right. So then tell me why building 7 collapsed after fall of building 2 in order for them to collect full insurance claim.
So it says debris from the collapse of World Trade Center 1, WTC 1, which was 370 feet to the south, ignited fires on at least 10 floors in the building at its south and west faces. However, only the fires of the lower floors 7 through 9 and 11 through 13 burned out of control. These lower floors, which spread and grew because of the water supplies to the automatic sprinkler system for these floors, had failed. Well, that's sketch right there. But let's see. We're similar to the building fires experienced in other tall buildings. The primary and backup water supply to the sprinkler system for the lower floors relied on the city's water supply, which lines were damaged by the collapse of WTC 1 and 2. So they're saying that the water lines that were meant to be putting out these fires from this city were damaged because of the World Trade Center collapsing.
Correct. That's what they were originally stating. But on that day, if you go back to that day, they say that the structure was not sound and physically could not sustain itself or hold itself, so they purposely detonated it. They said this
Here's
on that day. 6 months after that day, they said it wasn't able to sustain itself. It collapsed on its own. So tell me this. How are you able to load explosive charges on a day that no one predicted to blow up a building that would cover the full insurance claims. And I have friends that have worked on demolition many a times, blowing up multi-story buildings, where it takes weeks of preparation to set charges, to blow up the building correctly, to fall perpendicularly to the ground in a safe manner. How are we able to do that in a day if it takes a normal of 2 weeks to set up the charges?
Maybe.
How could we
Because-
physically
so-
blow that up?
So, all right. If you have, I did some quick calculations. All right. When you're measuring impact force, you're talking about giganewtons. That is what you use to measure impact force.
Right.
When you have two vehicles in a head-on collision, both vehicles going 60 miles per hour, with an average weight for a sedan of 3,500 pounds,
Right.
both are going 60 miles an hour, head-on collision, that's 120 mile per hour collision,
Correct.
considering both objects in motion.
Right.
That is peak impact force of 456,865 giganewtons.
Correct.
So 450,000 giganewtons. If you take the average mass of a 757 of 910,000 pounds, 747, 910,000 pounds, moving at 656 miles an hour, hitting an object that is stopped. So that
Right.
object is not in motion.
No.
It's a dead stop. That is 3 billion
Right.
549,827,309 giganewtons.
Correct.
That's a large
But
gauge.
Here's
So
the
how
thing.
many cars
They-
going 120 mile per hour collision is that being
Here's
thrown
my-
at one time
right. But here's
at
the
this
thing.
building? You know what I
They
mean? Like,
estimated from the time of hijacking where the plane was going, by the time of impact of those towers, that it only had half the fuel capacity. So you're cutting that fuel capacity in half. So I think it's 56, or rough what we talked about, 56,000 pounds of fuel. So you cut that in half, right? And then you're going at that steady speed with an object that's not moving. They were able to calculate that those buildings would stand with full impact of full fuel at that full miles per hour and still stand. Yet we had two, not one, two planes impact with less than half the fuel capacity. And yet both those towers fell directly down. You almost have to plant charges to make a building like that has stainless steel. It's not just any surgical, like regular steel, surgical steel for infrastructure, poured concrete, rebar that is built to withstand impact of a larger than a 747 collapse on a higher output of fuel.
So hear me out. The fuel capacity of a 767 that hit the World Trade Center is 23,980 American gallons. Freedom gallons. Sorry.
Freedom, all the bald eagles, all of
yeah.
the eagles.
Oh, there goes Logan.
Did we lose him?
grabbing a beer.
Grabbing a beer.
Okay, you gotta turn off your camera for that.
Well, I don't have a format.
I
set
took
up
a
yet.
pee and did that.
Okay. Do you guys want to take a little breather?
No, you're good.
No,
My
no.
thing
Wait,
here is
I have to pee too. Let's take a pee
okay.
break.
Well,
You want to keep talking by yourself, Paul?
I was gonna keep talking. So here, you guys
Alright.
listen. Go take your pee break.
People will be able to hear you. They just won't be able to see you.
That's fine. That's fine. So again, I'm getting at the point here, and it's not just me. It's average Americans now, where we are conflicted with the information we are given. We are given the information that the 747, 767, whatever it was, had a total fuel capacity of, XY. So you had 60,000 gallons or whatever, cut in half because it was doing its normal route and cut back to the World Trade Center. And then it did impact. These towers were engineered and developed before any of this, way in advance, for impact of these large aircraft at full capacity and be able to withstand the impact of these planes. Not people saying, "Oh, the fuel will melt beams," or it caused insufficient structure damage. Regardless, the math doesn't line up, right? So you have a plane that carries so much, able to do so much impact at this speed. It didn't even match the impact speed of what they calculated for. And it still was able to fall directly down in a perfect way for controlled demolition, right? If you did a controlled demolition, you blow up the bottom, work your way up on the columns, it falls directly to the floor,
Let me ask.
directly down.
Let me ask this.
Hold on. No side buildings are usually affected.
But in
The
this scenario,
singular barrier, I get it. I get
buildings
what you're
were.
saying.
So it wasn't that control. It was a poorly controlled demolition.
But they
But
were the
even okay,
exact buildings that needed to collapse to gain full insurance benefits. They were
even
the
if,
exact buildings.
but even if
So emotional about
we're
this.
talking about like
Who isn't?
they engineered the buildings,
Logan.
right, to withstand. Even if they had engineered the buildings to be like be able to withstand an impact from a 747, like the sheer force of the impact, which I don't think they've flown many 747s, 767s into buildings to test that. But
Correct.
if they had and they said, we've tested this, it's definitely going to withstand the force. What about the force of the impact and then the force of all of the floors above the plane dropping on the floors below it?
But that's the thing. It didn't hit at mid level or below. It hit top level, Logan.
Yeah, but even
With
if it's
top
two
level.
floors, that additional weight falling
Correct.
due to the forces of gravity,
I
that
get that.
impact
I
as
get
a
that.
secondary
But
impact.
we're not talking normal steel. We're not talking pressed iron. We're talking surgical steel, right? We're talking a steel that has tens of thousands of degrees to melt these beams to cause catastrophic failure,
Yeah.
to be able to take that weight and push it upon the rest of the building to make it fall perfectly
So
to the
Are
ground.
they not
that's not the case.
calculating
So
how much steel it's going to take to hold up the floors above it?
let
I
me
mean, I'm suring the engineers did their part,
let's talk
Like,
and I'm
about
just
with
let's
a
talk
building that
about
tall, you're talking about what is in the margins. Like a margin of an inch bend in the steel can be catastrophic. Like, okay, not
correct.
literally, but like it's very small figures, very, very small mishap in the
Right.
construction of the building can lead to catastrophic failure.
I
So,
get you.
like, to
Absolutely.
believe that
But
all
here's the
of these
thing.
factors at play wouldn't have some effect on the integrity of the structure is
Based
hard to
on
believe.
impact, right? Based on impact. So you're looking at the World Trade Centers. There's two of them. They have four major solid beams going up and then one solid with five. So five total beams holding these multi-story, hundreds of story buildings up, right? Every single one of these beams are able to melt higher than the rate from what the jet fuel puts off. So even on initial impact, say we weaken one of those beams, one of them, even though where the impact was should not have hit any of those beams. Throw that out there. So let's just say we weaken one of those beams and the jet fuel burns because it didn't fall immediately. We had some time. I remember watching the building on fire before it fell, right? Even if we had this situation happen in the way we're wanting it to come out, it doesn't line up. So you'd have to have jet fuel, which is we talked to the last
I
podcast,
don't think
which
the
is
fuel had anything to do with melting.
I get that. Even if we weakened one of those beams, though, Connor, there's five major supports on that thing. You have four major corners of the square and a center
You got to think about
around.
it as a core, right? So every single
Right.
skyscraper is going to have a central core. And once you impact that core, there's a chance the tensile snapping strength of the steel goes through the roof, literally in this case. But there was actually a engineer report done through NIST.gov. It did a video analysis, both the estimation of the instant the roof line began to descend and the calculated velocity and acceleration of a point on the roof line revealed three distinct stages. The total of the collapse was 5.4 seconds. And this was for WTC 7. Stage 1 happened between 0 and 1.75 seconds. Acceleration less than that of gravity, slower than that of a free fall, right? So it's something that was not pushed down, right? So this happened at the top. eventually it caved in, the core gave out, and that was the first stage. Second stage was a gravitational acceleration of a free fall, which accelerated with the calculated velocity of 1.75 to 4 seconds, right? So it sped up. So that was the way that could be the downward displacement of the point of the center of that roof line continued to gather
Right.
the faster free fall was happening from above. The core, essentially what happened was the
Well, the
exterior
more
of the
weight,
building imploded onto itself because the weight of that building went down. And
Right.
stage 3 happened very quick. Or sorry, not very quick. It actually decreased so it decelerated less than that of gravity for the final stage of the building collapse. So essentially, there was a quick center of the building collapsed, but the top of it was slow and the bottom of it was slow. Bottom of it being slow would make sense because it is closer to the earth, right? There's more supports at the bottom, less likely it would, collapse. But I think what happened was the core of the building was hit, completely destroyed from the impact, and then gravity. I think it was a tensile snapping strength of steel was met, right? The amount of
I don't.
pressure put on those beams
yeah.
couldn't withhold, and it imploded on itself essentially. And if you've ever
So
seen steel snap, it is a catastrophic, dangerous snap, and it would make sense that buildings surrounding it, if it was
right.
a tensile snap, would eject on fire debris hundreds of feet away from it.
I agree. I'm not 100% disagreeing with that, but here's the problem where people have, right? So you have a plane that on the first tower does impact at what, story 64 out of 100 and some, right?
Yeah.
So it's above half. It's not quite to the top, right? And you have a plane that does impact not even in the 5 pillars. So it does dead center, doesn't even affect the 5 pillars of structure to that first building. Then you have a second plane that hits at the top of the building. I think if I remember correctly, it was like level 74. It was towards the top, right? You're telling me that a plane or a building that was completely engineered to impact a full collision of a 747 at any section was able to collapse?
Yes, because
So,
these buildings are engineered in such a way that
but
it
here's the
doesn't
thing.
floor 1 isn't supporting floor 99.
No, they're independent. I get that.
Floor 1 is supporting floor 1 and floor 2. Floor
Right.
2 is supporting 2 and 3. So
Right.
when you have 5 floors collapse on like from 64 to 69, I don't know what the numbers are. I'm not looking at the graph of how the building collapsed, but I'm saying let's say it's 5 floors, 64 to 69. 69 collapses on 68, 67, 66. That has a multiplicative effect.
Right.
All of those floors are collapsing on
So
64, and then every floor from then on out has not just 1 or 2 floors that it's supporting, but 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and
right.
like I said, multiplying.
I'm not disagreeing with y'all, but like here's the thing. I just look at the information that is given to me, right? I think we all do that. So you look at the before information. You have a multi-conglomerate companies that are looking at insurance money. You have a section of land that is highly profitable. You have buildings that are considered outdated. And then you have not one, not two, but 3 terrorist attacks on the same building within a 15-year span before it. And then on the day of impact, right? I don't know if you guys have watched that. Have you guys, any of you, gone back and watched that video of impact? Like dead ass. Have you watched the
Yeah.
video of
Yeah,
impact?
Everyone's seen
You
it.
all
seen it
have.
a lot of times.
So when you have an object explode through a section level, usually the understanding is that there is a great force and impact and it can potentially blow out the levels, right? Of at least that level of where it impacts at, right? Right?
Yeah.
That's this anything. Like if you shoot a bullet through something, the gas or pressure from the other side will shoot out the opposite side, making a hole before the bullet to travel through it. Same ideology, right? Why is it that on the day of impact, not on the same floor, but not even 7 floors below and 7 floors above, there was multiple simultaneous, I don't even know the word I'm looking for,
Simultaneous.
simultaneous explosions on impact happening? that physically, like physics, do not align with why there was explosions out of other decks coming out of
I
the
think it's
opposite side of impact with a fucking carrier, which is what it was. It was a carrier. It was a 747, a person carrier
67.
with half
It's
67. So half the fuel capacity of what it normally can carry. Half, not full. Half.
when you have a
Blow
building
out
that's
multiple decks.
when you have a building that's hundreds of feet in the air, they have to air
1,000.
seal. They have to airtight seal the windows. So, like, I'm not saying that that's 100% why, because there was all sorts of debris flying at the windows, but they don't use like cheap glass that we use on our houses
I get you. Yeah.
for a building
Yeah.
like that. So, like, some of it was probably mitigated by the airtight seal that the building provided, but we're also, like I said, talking about what did I say, 4 billion giganewtons on the impact. So,
Well,
I mean, honestly, I don't have a good answer for that. That's a
well,
Right.
good
And
point you
not
bring up.
not a lot of people do. That's
so
the thing what we're talking about today. We're talking about the conspiracy and understanding of why people think about it this way, right?
I'm a
We all
realist,
grew up
Paul.
with the
You know me.
understand. I get you.
I
You're a
have to.
realist. You have to.
Have to.
was there fuel being supplied to the building for cooking,
So
anything like that?
here's the thing, right? So during the original attack on the floor level, there was multiple tankers put up in place, including a van, to weaken the bottom structure of the building so that the building would completely topple on itself. If you're thinking as a demolition expert, you want to weaken the bottom area of the structure and then the supporting columns to make it collapse upon itself.
But that's
Correct.
if you want it to be controlled. If you're a
I get that.
terrorist who
Hold
wants to
on.
destroy all of America, you
If
don't
you're
really
a
give a fuck
terrorist,
about
you
that,
don't
right?
give a shit, right? But then why does two towers fall like a controlled demolition, Logan? If they
Yeah.
really hit on the right side and corner side of these buildings and they weaken these structures, including the steel frames, like they say, the building should not collapse upon itself like it did. It
I
was a
think
controlled demolition. A lot of people throw it that way. I'm not saying that lives didn't die. I'm not taking away from that day and how terrible it was.
so
I'm just
emotional.
saying it is very
No,
sketchy.
no, I'm not taking it any kind of way either. There's no like, I don't have a personal connection with that day as far as I don't know anyone in the building, blah, blah, blah. Like, obviously, you have your experiences like you're at high school and you're doing a memorial and somebody talks about how their parents passed away. Like, we all have that growing up. So, I mean, you do have that kind of emotional connection to the day, but I'm saying like my parents didn't pass away in the incident, like, you know. But two things I do think are really important to bring up are one, we talk about how well engineered these buildings are, and
Right.
that if a 767, 747 hit them, it wouldn't cause a collapse. But if they're engineered so well, if they are going to collapse, I would expect them to be controlled. So that's my first point.
Right.
We can come back to that, but let me finish up really quick second thought. The way insurance works is it's rated based on risk, and the best way to it's like valuing a house. What are comparables in the area? You know what I mean? If
Right.
you have a catastrophe like this, then it increases the risk for everyone else who owns property in the area, and they pay higher insurance premiums. So if you have multiple properties, it's a disadvantage for you to have a claim on a property such as that, especially a total loss, because then your rates go up for all of your other properties.
So, can I throw something out there? This is just a separate fun fact, right?
Yeah,
So, all of us know the Empire State Building, right? You all know the Empire State Building. It's
I
one
like
of
that
the
building. It's a
iconic
nice building.
buildings of New York.
Yeah.
Everyone goes to it, millions travel to see it. It was one of the largest structures in the world at one point,
Will
right?
Smith jumped off of it to go back in time to save the planet.
That's Men
I
in
remember
Black.
that.
Fuck off.
I remember that.
Um,
So,
oh,
the date of its construction, right? The Empire State Building was able to withstand over, I say over, a B-7 or B-52 bomber, which at the time was like World
So
War
when
II
did they fly
bomber.
a B-52 bomber into it?
I'm not done yet. I'm not done yet. Hold on. Did you know that the Empire State Building has had 4 aerial impacts upon it?
From B-52 bombers?
One B-52 bomber, 3 Cessna
So
planes.
that's how they fucking
And a
tested it. They were like, all
private
right,
jet-
it'll do
Hold
a
on.
B-52.
Yeah, we know it works.
and a private jet.
There was
You
some
guys want to know
mob.
the differences between a B-52 bomber from World War II and a 747?
Here's what I want to know. I want to know the weight and the average speed.
And
Perfect.
fuel.
Here we go. So, length B-52 bomber 190 feet.
Weight.
747 230 feet. So it's a little longer.
Weight.
40 feet.
Wingspan.
Pretty big.
I'm not done. Wingspan.
Weight.
What?
Weight. Speed. Weight
I'm
and
not
speed.
done yet. I'm getting there. I'm reading
Weight
all
and
of
speed.
that. I'm reading all of it. The width and span 195 feet for a B-52 bomber. 747 109 feet. Height 45.7 feet for height. Height for B-52 was 45, regardless. Height for a 747 60. So not far off, right?
Sure.
Next, weight 272,000 pounds.
For a B-52?
B-52.
910,000.
Exactly. 910,000. So it's a little more in weight, but we're cutting it in half in fuel capacity.
A
This is
little
full
more?
we're cutting it in half.
If you have
This is fuel capacity, sir, including
$900,000. Is that a little more money?
fuel capacity
little
was
more?
cut in half. We're talking at full capacity, right?
Yeah, but fuel really
Full
didn't play
capacity.
a part in this situation.
But this was a building that was
what
over
about speed?
100 years in difference in engineering.
Okay,
What
let me
about
ask you
speed,
this,
though?
Paul.
Because-
Let me ask you this. How many people were in the B-52 when it crashed in the Empire State Building versus how many people were in the plane when it hit the World Trade Center?
25 versus 130.
That's a
But
lot
we
of
have
weight.
one of a private military airline versus a civilian.
I mean, we're talking about 2001 Americans versus, and foreign people versus 2023. There's probably about 100-pound person difference per person between those 22 years. But, you know, look,
But
Regardless,
we've
I'm
talked-
saying we
what-
have an outdated engineering
speed,
program on a building that is much older and able to not withstand one, not two, not three, but 4 aerial impacts
4 of them.
Well, okay, but the speed is
versus
actually
2 buildings.
the speed is really important though, Paul. Do you have the speed? Because
I'm looking it up right now. Hold on.
Depending on how much faster the B-52 goes, it could make up for the weight.
All right, look, we've talked 9/11, guys. We've talked it. We've done it. We live.
I have it. You want to know the speed, bitch?
Yeah, tell us
Yes.
the speed and then move
How
on.
many
Okay.
speed?
B-52, 958 miles an hour. 747, 945 miles an hour. The 747 is slower than the B-52.
Oh, by 3 miles an hour.
Doesn't matter. It's slower, my boy. And that impact was at full capacity, straight
Slower
off
and
of
700,000
JFK
pounds
Airport.
Lighter.
All I am saying is that the mathematic equations on more than one people around this entire conspiracy or theory or whatever you want to call it is saying shit don't add up.
You know
It's
what?
not on
Maybe
just,
they're
it's
just not
it's a
good at
lot
math.
on this day.
You
Look,
know, maybe they're just
You
bad
know,
at math.
you guys know it doesn't add up. This goddamn balloon over the U.S.
Oh my gosh! Yeah.
Oh,
so
it's a
let's talk about
whole.
that.
All right,
Oh,
cool.
I'd love
Let's
to
get
talk
into
about that.
Thank God. All right.
Let's do it.
So come Friday, China said essentially the entire balloon thing was a conspiracy theory.
You mean China?
China.
It's
Yeah.
China.
So Chinese state media claimed on Friday that a report about a suspected Chinese spy balloon detected over the United States airspace was a conspiracy theory. Now, for all of you that live under, a pineapple in the sea, there was a air quote weather balloon that was detected over Montana. However, NORAD supposedly has been tracking it since it launched from China last week. They're saying it traveled over Canadian airspace and then into the United States. As of a few hours ago, we are recording on Saturday at 6 p.m. Find us live on Twitch, Eastern Standard Time. A few hours ago, the United States military with their F-22 Raptors went ahead and shot down the balloon. Now, I want to make this on record. This is the first aerial takedown with the United States F-22s, and they hit a very slow moving balloon. Good for them. But
Speed and weight.
speed
But
and
here's
weight.
the thing.
Fuck off.
Fuck off, Logan. First of all, that's not only one. There's another one going
South
over
America.
Central and South America.
Yeah, well,
Hell
that's
yeah,
their
bro.
own problem.
Maybe they're thinking like, okay, we'll go up and through. We'll go.
They can
up
just
and
build a
through.
wall for that, right?
Right.
Yeah,
But
yeah. Good idea.
they did shoot it
It's
down.
never been done before.
They
Look
did
at
shoot
fucking China.
They did shoot down the balloon though within the 12 miles of ocean outside
So-
of the Carolinas.
Wonder
Did
if
you
they got
read
any good
anything
footage.
about Biden wanting to shoot that down and they said no? Because I
So-
read a lot of things that they said that it would
Here's-
infect population.
It was over fucking Montana. What, like 4 people could have been in the whoopie-doo. Look,
Hey, one of those people are our friend Sam, damn it.
and out of all the fucking people, it would hit him. But
That's terrible.
Next thing you
So-
know, we got zombies.
so on Wednesday, President Biden went ahead and said, yes, take it down. However, everything's been cut as far as being on the internet. Everyone cuts out shit to fit their agenda like they normally fucking do. But what happened was President Biden said, yes, shoot it down. I'm giving the command to shoot it down. However, it needs to be shot down in a safe environment, preferably over the ocean where it can be retrieved. Once it went ahead and made its way over to the Carolinas into the ocean, it was shot down and it is currently being recovered. Dive teams are on site as we are talking right now, recovering the devices that were on the balloon and parts of
The
the balloon.
wreckage.
But the why they didn't shoot it down makes sense. One of the
Yeah.
reasons that I'm seeing for why they didn't shoot it down is the Pentagon received quite a pretty penny for actual balloons, surveillance balloons. So if you look up in the Pentagon's report of their budget, they did receive funding for surveillance balloons. Even though surveillance balloons really weren't used much since the 1980s, they're becoming more and more prevalent because they can be masked as air quote weather balloons.
And they also can't be tracked as easily as some other forms could, such as a drone.
Correct. But why didn't the government want to shoot it down? It wasn't because of people, because the government doesn't give a fuck about you. Let's be honest. That's evident. What they were trying not to do is have it happen over U.S. airspace, because we actually have balloons overseas over top of other countries right now. It's pretty standard practice. Countries do that. A lot of countries have been doing that for a very long time. They have balloons over each other's countries doing surveillance, but it's nothing that a satellite really can't pick up. The main reason why they didn't want to shoot it, because they didn't want to have a back and forth, right? If we shoot down theirs, China's like, oh, hey, we know yours is up there, but you shot ours, we're going to shoot yours. And it becomes a
Stab
back
my
and forth.
back, I stab yours. Yeah.
Exactly. So that's one of the reasons. Another reason is they weren't sure what type of information it was collecting. So they went ahead and have had people essentially monitoring what is coming and going out of that, out of the devices on the balloon. The solar array, everything that was there before they were like, okay, now that we know what it's doing, let's go ahead and shoot it down, and then we'll just retrieve what it was collecting.
Right.
One of the weird things about it,
Because
and-
they definitely can't just like transmit that data automatically.
no,
I mean, from what I was told is that like the surveillance that they were taking, correct? They could already harvest that from like Google Images if they were using it as a quote unquote true satellite blimp or balloon or
Yeah,
whatever.
but they're still in our airspace. Fuck that.
yeah,
I get that. Oh, I get that. I get that 100%. But like,
kind of.
what were they really trying to do?
Realistically, they weren't in our airspace because no commercial or private aircraft flies that high. So it's sort of like the concept of, oh, you're in our waters. Well, if you're within 12 miles, yeah, I guess you're in our waters. If you're outside of it, you're in international waters. There really does.
Well, Russia's really good at that, aren't they?
Yeah, right. But I think the same concept goes into play with space, right? You put something in space over the United States, it's international space, right? No, nothing you can really do about it. But one thing that was confusing to me is this balloon made a track over Canada, and it happens to enter US over Montana. Now, Montana, from what we know,
Yellowstone.
has
Oh my god.
3 one major base that has an ample supply of thermonuclear hypersonic weapons, but also 3 nuclear silos, right? So there is 3 bases or 3 silo bases in Montana, but some people are saying, oh, the balloon was up there scouting for other bases that match thermal imaging and other things that are harder to do from space. Thermal imaging cameras, if you've ever been playing around with the infrared camera, quality decreases the further away you get from it. So some people are saying that could be at play. The Chinese side, so China did respond though and says, yeah, look, we regret this happening. It was unintended. The entry of the airship in the U.S. airspace due to a force majeure, right? So it accidentally went over there. We couldn't control it.
Is that French? Measure.
I think it is.
Measure.
Sure, it's Chinese. I don't know. The balloon reported hovering over U.S. airspace for a few days, but the Pentagon at that time decided not to shoot it down, citing safety concerns for people on the ground. But technically, NORAD's been tracking it since it was launched. The U.S.
Right.
has really, really good detection. But again,
Isn't it
Yeah,
funny
good
how like
question.
we can follow and track other foreign entities as soon as they launch something and they release the info to us, like, oh my god, this is breaking news, like it's catastrophic.
hilarious.
Let me ask you a question, really quick. Just a really quick question.
As fast as you can.
I sarcastically earlier made a comment about like, couldn't they just automatically transmit the data? For everyone wondering, they could immediately transmit the data that they're receiving live, just like we are live right now on Twitch, 6 p.m. Eastern time, Saturdays. Go ahead, Connery.
To that comment in our Twitch feed, yeah, we said that. But yeah,
He
so
said it before we did, to be fair.
oh, did he?
I
didn't see
appreciate that, Tyler.
So one of the 3 U.S. Air Force bases, though, that are in Montana, maintain and operate Minuteman III, which are intercontinental ballistic missiles. However, China said that it had no intention of violating American airspace. On Friday, China Daily writer Zhang Zuxane, I'm gonna fuck that up, I'm sorry, said that the shortest route between Beijing and Montana is over 9,000 kilometers, which is T units, not freedom
Right.
units. Which makes it
No
impossible.
bald eagles used in those units.
No, just really bad teeth. Hey, Deadly,
Ouch.
how's it going? Which makes it impossible to precisely control the flight of this or any balloon. However, they have one in South America right now. So look, China, you need to stay away from the holiday party store. You obviously can't control your helium. Get the fuck out of the balloon industry.
So here's my thing. We have a balloon over us from China. We have not
Had.
one, but had a balloon over us from China. We had not one, but 2 nuclear ships from Russia off of each coast. Not one, but the other, each coast. And all of these happened within a week span. Do either of you feel that America as a whole is falling off as the world superpower?
I think I think we fell off the world superpower train in 2014 when one of our trading vessels was attacked and we did nothing about it.
Listen,
Correct.
I think that this country does a lot of things right. But I think that the problem, it's not just countries, but individuals too. Like I think everyone can work on this, is having a growth mindset, understanding that you make mistakes, you're not perfect, and you can always grow and improve. I think the same can be said of this country. I don't think that it's a
Agreed.
terrible country, but I think there's a lot of room for growth. And if there's not, we might as well just stop where we are now and everybody's fine with where they're at, right? If that's
Right.
not true, then the country has room to grow. And also with that, I think that it's difficult to point out any area where we're number 1, actually, looking at the numbers.
Obesity.
Education, no.
Shut up, Connery.
Obesity, maybe. But like I could go on and
Number
on
of
and
people
on.
that believe that angels are real.
Obviously, we have room to grow. Are we
Are
the best country in the world?
Yeah, we're number 1 in
I
that
don't
aspect.
know. But we are Americans, and I think it's our duty to make sure that we are the best in the world.
But
if we're
here's the
not right
thing.
now.
We lead in 3 things: defense spending, evangelicals or evangelicals, so people that believe that angels are real,
Morbid obesity.
and then
heart
and
failure.
morbid obesity.
That's not what is that what evangelicals means?
Yeah,
Honestly?
evangelicals, people that believe that angels are real, really. Evangelicals.
Okay.
So
fair enough.
look, hold on. Here's the thing, right?
You
We
trash
spend-
motherfucker.
I get it. We spend more than
Hang
the
on.
next 24 countries in world defense, and like 22 of them are allies, or 23 of them. It's ridiculous an amount. So you're telling me that we have 2 nuclear warships and a satellite blimp over us, and we spend trillions, not billions, trillions of dollars on our defense, and they can't do anything?
Why,
That's taxpayer money. That's me. That's you. That's Connery. All of our money going to this, and them going like, we can't do anything.
realistically, let's be honest. They need to really play this smart. If they end up putting us in a position where next thing you know, countries are going red hot, does America have enough money to not end the world?
We definitely have enough money to end the world. That's for fucking sure.
And right now we're at a catch-22. You have a country that's able to show force, do their horse and show pony trade, and really, what's it going to do other than piss off a few far right wieners, right? Not going to do much more than that.
But here's the thing. You can say right, you can say left. But if you look at it as a whole, as an American, if you feel another foreign entity has interfered or invaded our, not necessarily our airspace, but our country in general, how does that make you guys feel?
It doesn't
Feel
do
like
Like as
what do
an
you mean?
everyday reason.
What do you mean? What do you mean invaded? Because we invaded ourselves back in 1776. So
I get that, but we have come a long way in 300 years, Luke.
Yeah,
We
I
went
agree,
from-
but 300 years versus thousands of years? Tell me about that. Because what's the place that they uncovered that's never mind. I'm not gonna be able to remember
No,
it.
you
But
can do it.
we're talking like what, 20,000 years ago was
Right.
human civilization? Are we gonna talk about how like, oh, we're all African now? Because
But here's the thing: we're not living in there currently. We're living in here currently.
wait,
If you
all
went
life originated in
13,
Africa according to
14,000,
evolution.
that's changed recently, by the way. Update yourself. But regardless,
Yeah, check yourself before you wreck
check
yourself.
guy. It's Asia now. But regardless, if that was modern time, and if we were there then, I guarantee those tribes people or the indigenous people of that area probably wouldn't feel great.
Indigenous?
If people come, indigenous is what I'm gonna say. Indigenous people of that area coming into, or someone else invading their space, they would not feel great about it. Then, now, recent, past, foreign, future, whatever you want to say, people don't like invasion of privacy, whether it be their normal
Well,
government
yeah,
or
we do.
foreign
I
entities.
think
Every
that's,
single
I was gonna say,
person
I think that's
has-
before the global economy because everyone
Yeah.
was fine with it when everybody was making a shit ton of money from the Silk Road and everything else. But now it's a problem that everybody feels comfortable where we are and they don't want people to take advantage of those same
funny you
opportunities that
bring
we've
that
had.
up.
And that's why everybody's
I
upset.
honestly don't
It's
think
funny-
people are upset about it. Think about it like this. What power, what control do we have over anything that's happening in our waters or over our head right now?
Us personally, nothing. Our elected officials do.
No.
But I want to go back to the funny thing that Logan brought up about the Silk Road. Logan, how many wars were started over that Silk Road?
I'm sure you know. Tell me.
Like 3,200
Yeah,
over a span of around
global-
1,300 years.
That's global trade.
It
Everyone
is.
benefits.
It's global trade, and we are a global superpower on global trade and
in a
controlling.
globalized world.
Yeah, it is. So you're telling me that
Hmm.
you don't feel any sorts of pressure from a country that is considered quote unquote communist, like China, and a country that is right on the border frame of a republic / communist like Russia, with a dictator, you could argue, that has been illegally holding power for 2 decades, working together, and now we have 2 nuclear ships off our coast and a satellite balloon over us? That doesn't give you, I mean, I know you guys might not feel that way, but me and a lot of other modern day Americans feel a little worried. It feels like Cold War all over again.
Oh yeah,
I
no, we're
am
definitely
more
going to make
worried about-
2023 weird.
Yeah.
I'm more worried about everything going on inside of this country right now than I am outside threats. Because here's the thing, I think that in the most armed country in the world, if anyone invaded, it would be problematic. And if they used nuclear
I'm
warheads, it would be a
yeah,
nuclear exchange. In a
right.
globalized economy, nobody would benefit from that. If we fuck up, they fuck up. If they fuck up, we fuck up.
Well,
But
they
here's
And
the
so, but at the
grand
end of the day,
scheme.
if people from the inside turned on us and went to the outside, and we're so concerned about the outside that we're not focusing what's going on here, they
Right.
can easily turn all of us against each other, which, holy shit, there's a huge political divide in America. I wonder what
Which
that's about. They don't
I'm
have to worry about coming in because they
right.
do it from the inside
yeah, they're
and we
I get
kill
that.
each other,
And
and
I'm
then they
not
come in and take our
disagreeing.
shit. They don't want to destroy it with nukes because they can use it.
Right. But here's the thing.
So why
You
would
can
they
argue
destroy
it
it when
either
they
way.
can just take it?
You can argue it either way. Many
You
people are
know?
like, "Hey,
Like,
we owe China or we owe Russia, and we're the world export and we're the leading superpower in when you quote unquote Western civilization." Right? We're that. We are the dot on the top of the eye. When you think of
what are we
Western
number one in?
culture, it's us. It's
What are we number
America.
one in?
No, no,
What
no.
are
obesity.
I'm
we
not
number one?
saying number one in overall. I'm thinking when you think Western
Anything
civilization
at
and
all.
you think China or Russia, when
Theater?
they
Are we
say
number one in theater? At least,
I
maybe?
get that. I get where you're getting at.
Like,
But I'm saying, if you talk to someone, which I have many times from
I've hoped you talk to
Asia
people.
or Russia or the countries that are Asian powers, and they're like, "What do you think of when you see Western superpower? What country do you think of?"
Austin.
Honestly, what country do you think of, Logan? Comes
where were
number
you?
one.
Where were you born, Paul?
Austin Powers.
Logan or Connery, I will fucking drive to Florida to bitch slap you.
I want a Jaguar.
It's
Type F.
America. You don't think of Germany as a Western
You were born in
superpower.
America.
I get that, but you don't think of France. You don't think of the
You're
UK.
biased
You don't think
because you were
no, I'm looking
born
at
in America.
statistics. What other country spends as
How
much
do
as we do?
what Americans think that America is the best country? I wonder what the statistics are
I'm
on that.
not saying we're the best. I'm saying we're the best at defense. That's all I'm
We
saying.
spend
We
the most
spend
on
more.
defense. That doesn't mean we're the
Exactly.
best
So
at it.
then
We have a lot of land to defend.
when you spend the most, you should be the best, Logan. When the Cowboys or detect or fucking Texas in general, Texas A&M spends the most money per capita on their football team, wouldn't you expect them to be the best? Doesn't mean they are. You would expect it. We spend the most at defense than any other country. You expect the best.
But now we have to get into population density and how many people we have to defend each square foot. And
It's a whole different ballgame. We're at a
oh
whole
gosh, oh no.
technological
Go ahead,
innovation
Connery.
compared to that.
Go ahead, Connery.
Logan, thank you so much for joining us this week. Guys, thank you so much for listening to Drunk Discussions podcast. This is Jesus Christ. Look, I hope you guys had a great time. We were going to talk about a lot of other subjects, but 9/11 is just it.
It's a hard one.
Paul's hard about it. You heard him. You heard it here.
I have a boner.
All right. Well,
Regardless, guys, I appreciate every single one of you for tuning in and listening to us, all of our live listeners, all to our listeners on Spotify and Apple, or any place you can find us. Definitely go to our Twitch and our Twitch TV and watch us. You are the shit. You're the only reason we do this. And we have so much more to cover. And obviously, I want to apologize for how drunk I have been this day, but that's on me, not on you.
No, we had fun. No, I really appreciate you guys having me on, and hopefully I'll get invited on in the future again. And I appreciate everybody for listening. Obviously, these guys are awesome, and you'll be hearing from them next week, and maybe me. We'll see.
actually, Paul won't be here next week, so I have to.
I won't.
It might be just
Oh.
you and me, Logan.
I'm on
I might be able
vacation,
to.
bitches.
I might be able to step in next week. See what happens.
Real quick, we are at 30 something. I don't know. 34 followers on Twitch. Look, moment we get to 50, we're doing a live drawing. We're giving away some merch. So be sure to hop on Twitch. Again, this goes for all Twitch followers. If you are a follower on Twitch, we will randomly select 5 people from that list to get some free merch, and we'll mail it out to you. So go ahead, give us a follow on Twitch. It's twitch.tv/drunkscussions. That's DRUNKSCUSSIONS. Yeah, give us a follow. Guys, thank you so much for listening. Peace.
Peace.